So I think we should dive into this thing. So bear
It
with
was,
me.
pardon my
There
French,
we go.
and debacle.
Now I have not actually got this set up to have both of us on. I don't think.
I don't need to be on. I'll read the
Eh,
comments. It's your show.
okay. I'll do that. No, that. I'll just do share my screen. Jan
Yeah.
will see that in a few moments as to what I actually just did.
Uh-huh.
So I was real quick one on this. I was very busy just playing around with my scene, and I was working on wall pieces, and then I started working on a series of floor pieces, and there are lots of variations so that the dungeon floors look kind of awesome. And when I'm working on something like this, I tend to highlight the area that I'm working on and just go into local view. So that's the forward slash. And I work like that and I move forward like that. At some point, I managed to get rid of this lot over here. So I'll just press the H key to demonstrate what had gone on. I'd gotten rid of all of this lot here, which were the new corridors I've been working on. And I think there's an important point here that when you're working on multiple assets in a scene, it can be dangerous that you can accidentally, in my case, have deleted stuff, not realize you've deleted it, and then later on when you come to edit it again or put it back together, it's gone and it's not part of your save. And usually I commit things as I go to a Git repository. And yes, I had just clicked save lots. And obviously, if you've saved something after you've deleted it, fortunately, an auto save saved my bacon.
That was my idea. That was my idea. We
But
didn't we didn't use Git this time, which is good because every time I get involved with Git, we lose everything and have to start from scratch.
I'll go through that in a moment because actually recovering stuff is how I lost something else, and I'll show you why in a second. I did want to go through the process of just so I made a series of objects here to mimic archways, and from that I actually reworked everything so so it actually fits in discrete units much better than before. So if we have a look at how this is designed, it's actually only a tiny piece here that's then repeated over and over again. But I wasn't quite happy with how that was actually laid out. So I went back and redid it. And if I have a look at just this area here, you'll see that I'm only working on almost like a quarter of the model. Now, I didn't get to that point straight away. I had to make the full physical model before mirroring it and everything. But then when I got to this, it meant that I could create this piece arching over this way. And then if we come back out again, we've got another piece in the background that actually just does the opposite.
Yep. Quickly from the comments, hello, Diedrich. Uh, Vertex is modular dungeon smiley face. Yes, I mean the idea is to make this into modular dungeon, partly for the assets pack, partly for the course on how to make a modular dungeon,
Yep,
and partly for the first Godot part of the action RPG courses on creating a procedure generated
I'll get the right one in a second.
level.
Yes,
Really,
yes. One of the things that it's important to run through. Obviously, I can't take people on a journey where we go backwards and forwards and lose our work, and so I'm going through the whole process of making a large collection so that I can come up with a workflow that works when you're working with large collections of objects. One of the things that I've realized at this point is the fragility of having everything in one particular blend file. So perhaps I
yeah,
should have had all the
yeah.
walls in one, all the floors in another, and then used Blender's asset pack or asset library to actually put everything together for the
I didn't
asset
even
pack
know that was a
itself.
thing.
Yes, it is.
Huh.
But then it makes the quickness of having everything together in one scene and grabbing a bit from over there and then putting it together. It actually makes that bit a lot more challenging to do. Um, but after I'd managed to go through everything here, let's come out of local view again. The great thing about this is when it came to making this corridor area here, I simply went to, and this is modular in its design. I just simply added the number of units I needed to get all the way over. Excellent. And then I did the same down here. And that sort of thing makes it so much easier to put different varieties together. Because this outside corner wall, for the corridors, by the way, this is actually a corridor piece rather than an edge piece on the wall. But there's no reason why I couldn't grab let's do something live here. Never goes wrong when I do something live. Actually, let's grab this piece first, move it across. I've not got
While you're
snapping turned
doing
on.
that, we have a question from Vertex. How many modules in total are you planning to make?
Yes.
Yeah, we do actually have this on a document somewhere, but we've been so in the weeds with various courses for the past month that I actually can't remember what it says.
Uh,
Lots.
yes, lots is the short
So
answer there.
the idea is to make a bunch of them. A fair amount will be available just as part of the course, and then for those of you who want extra assets, and it's you want more to build on all the rest of it, or you want
Yeah.
to use them in other games, there'll be an asset pack that you could get separately, either with the course or instead of. And I should point out that if you are a lifetime member, you don't have to buy the asset pack that's included.
But as a demonstration here, you can see I've managed to fill up an entire wall at this point. Oh, these are iterated, not quite the right length. This back piece, but you get the point here. This is very easy to expand and make a wall of any length out of the same piece. So not only are we talking about making modular assets for, let's do both of us, uh, ba- ma- blah, making modular assets just for the course itself, so bits fit together, but also modular assets in thinking about modularity when you're designing them. A lot of architecture and things like that is repetitive. And what you can then do is go in afterwards and then do things like, well, this is the wrong length. So you could, let's just convert it to a
Ow.
mesh, and then you can go and grab it and pull it back a little, for instance, and make it the right length. And you'll notice something else is going on here because I'm using shared data. I'm not breaking my current project, which is good. But the other thing is here, once you've got something of the right length, having all of these faces is not going to be optimal. So I wouldn't go through, especially early on, and do a lot of optimization. But low hanging fruit like this, where actually that could just be one big face, you could come in and dissolve the faces. He says that didn't work. Interesting. Let's dissolve edges instead. Why is it not working? I'm doing it live.
If that's why.
These are quite possibly just separate objects. So I'm going to merge by distance and then let's dissolve faces. There we go. So one large face. And very importantly, I've not got it turned on at the moment. I've actually got a matte cap on at the moment. So I'll just put this back to studio, make things a bit brighter for everyone. One of the things to check here that I often forget is under the overlays, we've got face orientation. So it's entirely possible that during the making of something, you end up with something red facing forward. That actually happened quite a bit early on. Hopefully, there isn't anything in here now that makes that mistake. No, doesn't look like it. Excellent. And you can probably see here that this doorway isn't finished yet, and that's because the doors themselves will be different objects that will go in that space. And there's also a plan to have square doors as well as the large arches as well, and possibly some other style doors. But for the moment, it's all about focusing on the bare minimum models. If I hop over here, that's very brightly coloured. I'm just going to unhide everything in the scene. He says, I've got this turned on. Is that the
And
reason
hard
why?
ops is just generally fun. I like hard ops a lot, Vertex.
Hard ops is something that I would recommend. It's a brilliant add-on. However,
Yep.
I don't use it an awful lot because of the teaching required. One of the
Right.
things
And it's
we
also
want with our courses is to make sure that you don't have to go and buy another bit. I'm in the works in the background at some point. I'd love to do some courses on uh, well-known paid add-ons, things like Hard Ops and Box Cutter, etc. Some of which I think there's a free version of Hard Ops. Is it? I'm not sure. But anyway,
I don't know.
if there is a free version, then that kind of blows some of my thing out of the water. But it's difficult because we don't want the barrier of entry to be too high for beginners.
Yep.
But certainly having something like Hard Ops and Box Cutter can dramatically increase your speed and your
Well, there's also
efficiency.
like if you're going to be teaching a plugin, I think you should teach the plugin.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're going to be teaching a course on something else, unless the plugin is absolutely required for that to work, I think it's out of scope. And
Oh
I
yeah,
almost because I found a replacement for the palette editor for Godot that I used
right.
to use in Godot 3. found in God of 4. So I fired it up and I was about to put it in the course, and I thought I'll just check this.
Yeah.
Can't get it working.
Oh dear.
There's I don't know if it's because it was written in Windows and I'm running it on Linux, and um, the path to the scripts folder doesn't work because scripts is lowercase s in the path, but uppercase in the script. And I know that Windows has a habit of ignoring that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just the beta used to accept that and the live doesn't. I don't know what's happened.
Oh,
But yeah.
you've just reminded me about something when it comes to the Python course that's in editing at the moment. So
Oh,
there's a beginner Python course coming through the pipeline at the moment. They I made the executive decision at that point in time to not use an external IDE. The number of times that, as you pointed out, the path is incorrect. The number of times that I've come across people having issues with their Python installation on their system, especially on Windows. Fortunately, with Mac and Linux, it tends to be already installed and operational, but that's not the case on a fresh installation of Windows. But the last thing I want to be instructing people to do is changing their path variables and causing them to have an unstable system or for something else
mm,
to break. Because if you're not in a position where you can fix those sorts of things, then you square out of luck. You can pretty much ruin your installation of Windows if you play around with the path too much. Um, Especially as a beginner. What does this do? Bob, gone. So
okay.
yes. Uh,
I don't know Measure Machine. I have to check that out, Vertex.
yeah. So what I'm
Um,
doing with the Python course is we're just going into Blender and using the stuff in Blender, and I think that's also a good way of approaching it from a beginner's perspective because that's one of the easiest places you can search the BPY module, the Blender Python module itself, because it comes up without having to install anything else. It's fantastic.
but it is one of those interesting things. Like, there's an add-on that would make this simpler. Do I teach with it? Like at some
Yes.
point, I know at some point in the action RPG thing, I will be looking at some add-ons,
Hmm.
but the add-ons I want to use aren't finished for God of 4. Like they're in like
Yeah.
Scatter is in development for 4, but it's not yet on the asset library. So good thing I'm not doing the overworld yet.
But that's one of the things you could, in theory, place all these things by hand